Hi, my name is Pilar, and the title of my capstone project is Absences After the Raid, School Impacts of ICE Enforcement. So this project examines how intensified immigration enforcement in Los Angeles during 2025 affected student attendance in nearby schools. Early this year, federal policy changes removed protections around sensitive locations like schools and community spaces. For Los Angeles, home to nearly 2 million undocumented or mixed status residents, this reversal created widespread fear among families with young children. So, in June 2025, ICE carried out major operations at Westlake, Home Depot, and Fashion District's Ambiance Apparel warehouse. These locations sit at the heart of immigrant house neighborhoods where enforcement disruptions reach far beyond workplaces, impacting daily routines, transportations, and families' sense of safety. So, to give you an idea, I did create a map of the two locations that this research focuses on, and then the 14 schools that I chose. These 14 schools are in within 2 mile radius of these locations. This is the Home Depot in Westlake that had ice raids on beginning June 6th. They had multiple ice raids. And then the Ambiance Apparel, this is a manufacturing importer and fashion district where a lot of immigrant workers, about 40 were arrested on June 6th. So, to understand these impacts, I analyzed two key data sets. The first was ICE records from September 2023 to October 2025, obtained from the Deportation Data Project. After cleaning the data, including deduplicating roughly 200 records and standardizing dates, I conducted exploratory analysis in Python. So let me just show you what that looked like. Oh, here we go. So this was the Python script I used. This was used with the guidance of the deportation data project documentation. They actually had some recommendations and guides on how best to clean this based off of the logic they used. So I had to make sure that I implemented that in my script. And this allowed me to remove about 200, which was useful to make sure I was using the most cleanest data set before analyzing. Um, so And then let me just jump into some of the analysis I conducted on the iService data really quick. So when I started doing the exploratory data analysis, it was very clear that there was a spike in June. So this data set represents September 2023 all the way to October 2025. And you can see from September 2023 up until the last month of 2024, there's almost like an average of arrests. 400, 531 being the most, almost 300 being the least. There's a clear average. And so then when we get into 2025, it goes up to 665, which is the highest, comes down to 555, 500, spikes, I would say 800 being in May, and then absolutely spikes in June with almost 2,500 arrests. Comes down at around 1,800 arrests, 1,200 arrests. Even though it comes down, these are still very high numbers. And then I'll point out that in October, it comes down all the way to 678, but the data is reflective of arrests up until October 15th. So this is really only showing us half of October, meaning that this could be much higher. Um, so seeing that this was such a high number, I went ahead and broke it down by days to see if there's a spike in certain days, and there was June 5th, June 12th, June 17th, June 18th, June 22nd. Which you can see averages around 148, 132, 137, almost I would say around 120 arrests. But they're pretty much consistent throughout the month, meaning that enforcement was arresting in large numbers in the month of June, throughout the month of June. So that made me curious about days of the week, if there was a trend in arrests in days of the week. As you can see, Tuesday became the largest number, the largest day. sorry, the largest number of arrests by day, Tuesday. And then you can see that on Saturday and Sunday in the past. So blues representing 2024 as in last year. And you can see how last year there was far less arrests on the weekends, excuse me, than this year. And so this is due to the high increase of budget that the the ICE received, 170 billion to be exact, to bulk up their enforcement, to bulk up detention, to create new detention centers through the country. So you're going to see that when they're given more money, there's going to be more arrests made at the end of this year and next year as well. So the next charts represent demographic data. Males were still very much representing the higher gender that is being arrested. And then you can see here 25 to 50-year-olds are sort of in a large range. You can see 35 to 44, slightly higher than everyone. And this is partially due to the fact that folks that are being arrested are being targeted in certain places like car washes, Home Depots, where they are centered. That's going to be the age range of a man working in those sort of more labor workplaces. Like, for example, the Home Depot had a high arrest of males in this age range. And then also the top 10 citizenship countries noted Mexico being the highest, Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Colombia. This represents, being that it is LA, there's a large diaspora of Mexican and Central American countries. So that also makes sense. And then this one was interesting. So this is apprehension methods. Um, you can see, so blue is indicating last year's in 2024, orange is 2025 this year. Community arrests and incarceration arrest. So incarceration arrest means that someone that is detained for maybe committing a crime, they're taken to jail, and then at jail it is learned that they don't have the proper paperwork, they are deemed undocumented, and then so in jail, local enforcement calls ICE to come and arrest the individual for whatever deportation proceedings look like for that individual. And so if you see that last year and this year, those were almost about the same, community arrest and incarceration arrest. And then you see the dramatic spike in community arrests that occurred this year. So no longer is ICE relying on incarceration arrest, which is really folks that are coming with being detained for some sort of crime in that sense, as opposed to just arresting people on the street for any reason that they think someone isn't documented. Um, and so, yes, these are the analysis done on arrest data for ICE. And so the second data set came from the California Department of Education State Quest System. I collected absentee metrics from 14 schools, which I had showed. Although only annual totals were publicly available, comparing last year's school to this year's school years revealed important patterns. So I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so it'll be here. So this is the table I created. Just to give you some context, these are excused absences, which were significant enough to, and relevant to this research, which is why I added it here. You can see, and just to give you context, excuse 2024 to 2025 school year. This includes July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. And so that window of the school year fits the ICE arrest, which is significant to this research and this question. And then I wanted to compare it to last year and then create like a percent change of like excused absences. As you can see, there's some high ones here. Um, some campuses experienced very sharp rises, like Charles White Elementary increased by 270% and Harold McAllister High by 189%. This suggests families may have opted to formally excuse absences during a period of heightened enforcement, choosing caution and coordination with schools rather than risking unexcused marks. But it's important to emphasize that excused absences are still absences. They reflect disrupted routines, fear-based decision making, and stress that can affect a child's well-being. So, um, while this data does not allow monthly alignment in the June rates, which doesn't allow me to sort of create a casual correlation, the 2024 to 25 reporting window does include that enforcement surge, which I just explained. And combined with the findings from prior research, such as studies documenting increased absences and emotional distress from following immigration raids, these results fit into a broader, well-established pattern. Immigration enforcement reverberates through schools. So ultimately, this project demonstrates that immigration policy is not only a legal or political issue, it is an educational and developmental one. Understanding how enforcement shapes student attendance helps schools, policymakers, and communities better respond to the needs of children growing up under a weight of structural uncertainty and fear. So, thank you for listening to my project. And if you wanted to explore more of what I share on this website, you can by following this link here, and I'll have it in the paper as well. So, thank you.